I had found that I had a medical problem that doctors couldn't solve, and meanwhile I'm showing up at healing rallies and faith rallies and prosperity preachers every weekend. It really made me think through what my own presuppositions are about what God can do.
It was 8 long years, right?
It was a long haul, but it was a lot of fun to meet preachers and pastors and regular folk to think through what do people really expect when they ask God for things.
Okay. Kate, I'm going to turn to Father Terence here. Father, why have you taken a vow of poverty?
Well, I have not only taken a vow of poverty, but also chastity and obedience, because it's a freedom. It's a certain freedom to give up things like that, the pursuit of wealth, the pursuit of the opposite sex, and poverty, chastity, and obedience, and learning to cooperate with other people, to be in a community, and we work together, we cooperate.
What happens spiritually? What are you getting from God when you do those? Like, it's like the complete denial of the prosperity gospel in your life.
Well, one person has it, we have nothing, but we lack for nothing, because we have the wherewithal to live. We have food, and we have transportation when we need it, and I work at university and teach and so forth, and so I have an office and a telephone and the things I need.
Kate, you've just heard those benefits. What, in your research, did you discover people are looking for the benefits in the prosperity gospel? What are they looking for?
I think they're looking for 4 things. The first comes from a different definition of faith. Instead maybe of hope or trust, what we traditionally think of as faith. They really expect it to be a spiritual power that's unleashed with positive thought and positive words. And it's those things that they use faith to get wealth, to get health, and an overall sense that things really are going to get better.
Is it just pie in the sky dreaming?
I mean, in some ways, it really depends on what people are asking for. I do think there's a real emphasis on the power of the mind that's new, that we've never really seen until the last 100 years, in which people expect the mind and faith to align in a way that can unlock God's blessings and treasures in somewhat of a formulaic way. It may be an over-reliance on that we haven't yet seen in Christian history.
Okay, and I'm going to ask where this comes out of, Kate, because you do track the history. There's some real roots of why we are where we're at this stage. Can you explain that briefly for us?
Sure. It's kind of radical evangelicalism caught fire right at the late 19th century, turn of the 20th century, in what becomes Pentecostalism. So it's Pentecostal's early investment in thinking through the body and healing as a place where God will show up, combined with the power of the mind and a tremendous optimism in unleashing the power of thought in order to make that happen.
And it comes back even earlier than that. The Protestant work ethic feeds into this idea that you're here in God's divine continent, you better make it succeed.
Yes, as a Canadian, I feel that often. I'm just breathing free air. But I think there is a real sense that it tapped into these deep strains in American thinking about a can-do attitude, optimism, bootstraps, that anything is possible.
So what message is the Catholic Church trying to send about wealth? Because you have a palace, and yet you have these humble vows of poverty. I don't get it.
Well, it may seem strange, but it's not strange at all, because as it were, the papal palace and so forth, these are things that have accumulated, like St. Peter's Basilica, which is the most beautiful church in the world. It's overwhelming. When you go to Rome and you see St. Peter's and you say, oh my goodness, this is beautiful, this is enormous, this is terrific. And yet, well, people need, this is something for 1.2 million Catholics around the world. And so they all come there at some time or other.
So it's a shared.
It's a shared thing. It's not, nobody owns that. I mean, and even like for myself, I drove down in a car today, but it's not a car I own. It's something we have in common. It's like zip cars or go-cars or something like that we share.
Kate, you hear how Father Terence defines no need for the prosperity gospel. You saw quite a different need that people thought they needed out of this trend of faith. What was it?
Well, it is kind of fascinating that it really does tap into those deep debates about whether the church and whether Jesus, in fact, was wealthy. So we do see a kind of ongoing friction in the Christian tradition between a more than enoughness, things that point to beauty, like you're pointing out with basilicas or other things, and some of the ideals that we see embodied in the early church, like martyrdom, suffering, lions. But I find that if you just ask, particularly people in a first world context, what do they want? They want their bills paid. They want a sense that there's going to be a little bit left at the end. They want family togetherness. They want emotional restoration. And the prosperity gospel promises a mechanism to achieve all of that.